Okay, so today I am going to tie one of my Stinger crappie jigs for you on camera. Okay, that's what it looks like when it's finished. Okay, it's got the accent color showing through a main body color of chenille. Okay, two different colors of Marlboro and these cool little hackle wings, which is actually the reason for shooting my video is that someone asked me to show them how to do those hackles because it is kind of a difficult step. Okay, so I'm going to take my base wrap of tying line or thread and bring it all the way down, and where I want to terminate this is directly above the hook point. Okay, and I come back all the way back up to the head again, cut off my tag end. Okay, now essential to jig making, as you go through the process, you'll realize that you want to tie on your materials and not have to trim them after it's over. Many people try to build way too big of a jig using way too much feather, realize their mistake at the end, then they try to trim that and it just ends up looking horrible. Okay, the best part of the Marlboro is the tip end, this fluffy stuff. And if you trim that off and you get left with what was the shaft end of it, okay, it really looks kind of bad. Anyway, get it to look in your fingers exactly like you want it on the jig. Okay, I like to go no longer than maybe about 1/4 of an inch past the end of the hook. Okay, now this isn't going to look like a whole lot of Marlboro on here when you get this tied on, and it really isn't, but we use 3 different layers, and so you end up with adequate Marlboro. Now I'm going to bring that all the way down, and when I get directly above the hook point, I do what's called a strength wrap, going around about 6 or 7 times, and then spiral back up to the head again. For this particular lure anyway, the bobbin starts at the head, goes down the body, ends at the head every time. Okay, and I never cut it off. It's one continual strand until I get to my tie off. My next step is to tie on a little bit of an accent plume. It's smaller, it lays on top of the other Marlboro, and it's exactly what I said it is. It's just an accent color. Okay, again, get it to look exactly like you want on the lure before you cut it off. Don't attempt to trim it afterwards. As I look at people's builds, particularly the rookies online, that's one of the big mistakes that I see them making. They do some really nice building, but they get down to the end and they don't like the finished look, so they try to trim up their materials. Okay, so that's just a real light little accent color there. Bring that back down the body of the jig. Okay, now here's my first roll over to the other side. Okay, I'm going to select another plume to put on here that's my main body color, which was my Chartreuse. Once again, I'm going to get it to look exactly like I want it to look on the jig in the length that I want before I tie it on. Okay, so that's the 3rd plume of Marlboro I'm tying on this jig. Come back up the body of the jig. Okay, now here comes those hackle feathers. Now hackle comes in a string of hackle like this, okay? And these tips, which is what I'm mainly using, are a variety of different sizes. You got some that are small and thin and others that are nice and fat like this one. What's important is that you select 2 that are near identical to each other. Okay, so this is one of the ones that I'm using. I'm going to strip away the feathers, exposing about the last 1/2 of an inch. Okay, now I'm going to lay that on top of my lure body, right like this, at an angle. I'm going to bring my thread over the top, spiral wrap down to the strength wrap area, and once again wrap around several times, and then when you release it, it stands up real nice and proud there. Okay, I'm going to prepare my other side in the same fashion. I'm going to expose some stem. Now this time I'm going to lay it crisscrossing the other way. Bring it all the way back down to the strength wrap area. Go around several times, and it stands up real nice on the other side. Okay, end up right back behind the head again. Okay, now with that in place, if I've got a bunch of loose stuff that's in the body area that I don't want to wrap over the top of, and I'm going to trim that away. Be careful you don't cut your Marlboro or your hackles off. Okay, just clean that up a little bit. Then once again, a slight dab of glue right where those tie-ins were. You get carried away from the glue. Usually there's a little piece of chenille hanging around somewhere from a previous tie. Just touch it to the glue. It's pretty darn absorbent, okay? And you can get that so it's not going to drip on you anyway. All right, now I'm going to roll again. Back around to this side. This is the underside of the lure. Okay, if you're fishing for crappie, that's the side they're going to see. Okay, they usually strike up at the lure. So I'm going to bring this chenille into the picture here. Now my main body of the lure is going to be this bright Chartreuse chenille, and I want about 5 to 6 inches of that. The main body gets tied on directly parallel with the hook at first. So I start up at the head. Oops. And extend all the way down to my strength wrap right in front of my hackles. Okay, then come back up again. Okay, I use a spring. Press it down in between those, and that'll hold that out of the way. Okay, now I want another 5 inches, but of the accent chenille, whatever color you choose for that to be. In this case, it's black. Okay, so about another 5 inches of that. I'm going to tie that on the side of the hook, away from me first. It doesn't matter. You could tie you're going to tie on both sides eventually, so it doesn't matter which one you pick. Okay, go down the side. Okay, back up to the head again, and I'm going to wrap that around like a loop. Go to the other side closest to me. Having a little trouble getting this one started here. Only happens on video, if you could believe that. Alright, then I'm going to come all the way back up again. Now this time I'm going to take the bobbin and I'm going to pull it down out of my way. I'm going to use my shears. I'm going to put it in the loop, snip that off. Okay, so now I've got 3 pieces of chenille tied on. Remember I said this one was the main body color. These 2 are the accents that show up as little boxes. Take a little bit of water, pull back your Marlboro, okay? That fuzzy Marlboro stuff gets in the way of this body wrapping, and you can improve that later on, okay? It's not always going to look like that. All right, so now I'm going to take my main body. I'm going to go behind this one. I'm going to bring it around, wrap it around the hook, behind this one. Then I'm going to bring this tag and bring it back to the spring, go in front of it. Okay, it's just a matter of going in front of and behind. Okay, I'm going to go in front of this one. And I'm going to bring this, and this is an important step. I'm going to bring this chenille and I'm going to touch it right where my eyeball is. I want it even with my eye. Okay, and bring that over the top. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Bring it over and use my thumb and hold it right on the eyeball. And again. All right, now bring this one back. Wrap in front of it. Bring this one back. Wrap in front of it. And you're going to continue all the way down until you get to the head, going back and forth with your accent color. And it's going to create, an accent color never gets wrapped around. It just ends up getting wrapped above and under the body color. And exposes itself kind of like little boxes on the side. Okay, so I get all the way up to the head. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and bring my bobbin back up. Over the top of this one. Okay, my main body color, I'm going to go behind it. In front of it, behind it, in front of it, and then I'm going to terminate that, or I can bring it up, just cut it off. Okay, I'm left with my two side colors. They match my thread color. Okay, that's kind of important. Okay, I'm going to wrap around the back, just doing one at a time. Go around about 3 times around each one of them. I don't like my thread to get exposed until I make the head wrap right behind the head. Okay, I could snip off these two. Okay, now I'm going to make a very nice little collar right behind the head by going around. With this thickness of thread, I got to go around almost 15 times. Okay. All right, so then whip finish. I go over the top. Whip finish again. I usually use at least 3 knots. Okay, now for strength, I also drop a little bit of head cement on here, but here's a little pointer. I found if you drop that head cement right there, it'll seep into the chenille and it'll make the body hard all the way down on the underside. And like I said, that's the area that the crappies strike. And I don't know if it makes a big difference or not. Okay, but I'm going to put it right behind the tie-off on the top of the hook. And I actually drop it a little bit on the head and let it roll down into the main body. Okay. Now you could take the sides if they're a little bit fuzzy. This chenille's thick. I like my lures to be thick, but I want to expose that and clean that up. So I use my shears to do that job. And I got wet head cement on there right now, so I don't want to go grabbing this and taking it out of the vise. I usually use a set of snips, and then I could bring it out. Okay, so now I've got my little hackle wings. Okay, now if you go ahead and blow on the tail, remember we got that stuff wet. Okay, it'll fluff back up again and show you what your final result will be like. Okay. So, there is a Stinger model jig tied for you on camera. Any questions? Shoot me an email. Thanks again.